Well, folks, allow me to state the obvious. Trees are pretty amazing, are they not? I was just looking at some pictures of trees. I typed on YouTube different types of trees, and it was refreshing, just the pictures that came up, especially if you just type in a search engine, types of trees or walnut trees, seeds. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about trees, specifically firewood. So firewood is an amazing resource, as the title of the video indicates. There is usually just a couple ways that it's sold these days, most commonly, especially if you live in any sort of suburban or semi-rural areas. You'll see it a lot, right? It's the 4 foot high by 8 foot wide, 16 inches deep face cord, which these days runs about $90. That's the most average price here in Michigan, at least. Or also you could buy the V-stack, right? They sort of look like this. Usually $20, maybe 40 or even 60, depending on how much you want to pay. So that tends to be how they sell these days. And can I just get back to real quick how awesome trees are? I'm kind of geeking out a little bit because I've always liked working with wood in general. It smells good, especially cedar. And I'm like, guys, I'm just being honest. I'm going to research wood more. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to watch some videos. I'm going to try to dig in. Anyways, so we're talking about firewood though, right? So that's how it's sold. It tends to be a V-stack, tends to be a face cord. Again, we just saw the prices. What are different types of wood? Well, you got hardwood, like this, most likely oak, this big thick beast. Doesn't smell like cedar, so it's probably oak. Tends to be more kind of knotty and rough and robust, so to speak. Whereas something like pine, softwood, it's lighter, right? It's more tends to be more straight. Pine does still have knots in it, makes it hard to chop with an axe, etc. But for the most part, it chops easier. Whereas this oak tends to have a lot more kind of twistings to it, and it splinters more. It tends to have the feathering type of thing that can happen, which is nice when you're building a fire, because that can the fire can grab those little pieces that stick out more. Other hards, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously, maybe you didn't know this. Some other types of hardwood would be maple, ash, and mahogany. For those of you Ron Burgundy fans from Anchorman, mahogany desk, that's a hardwood. Whereas other softwoods would be things like pine, as we mentioned, cedar, which smells awesome. Use cedar sachets for your shoes if you guys work construction, or even just in general, get some cedar sachets, put them in your shoes when you're not using them, and it'll help keep things fresh, so to speak. Spruce, I'm less familiar with. And so these are, it's cool, just the fact that trees exist in hard and soft, because, they burn differently, since we're talking about firewood. Obviously they look differently. Aesthetically, it's just nice to see the variety that God made, we would say. And not only aesthetically and the variety of how fast they burn, but even building materials, right? So pine, you think pine studs, right? 8-foot studs, 16 inches on center in a house. If you bust open your drywall, you're going to see studs back there. Those tend to be made of pine because pine's lighter weight, though it has good structural integrity. And but if you wanted to build something epic, like a castle, or something that just looks cooler, a lot more solid, go ahead and drop that extra money for the oak or the mahogany, and maybe it'll last longer, but it's going to be a lot heavier. So those are some different types, guys, hard and soft. We'll get back to some of this wood in a little bit, probably. Acquisition. How should you acquire wood? Well, the three main ways that I can think of are, you could look around for people who are giving it away for free. Like, hey, I just chopped a tree down and I'm going to put it up on Craigslist. Whoever wants this wood can come get it, but, you got to chop it up. So you get your chainsaw, you get your axe, you head out there. Definitely recommend safety goggles, bar chain oil, gasoline, all, research it. It's an investment to get a chainsaw, an axe, and all the necessary implements. But once you got them, especially if you keep it operational, it is nice to be able to just quickly grab glasses, chainsaw, axe, perhaps some bibs, maybe even a face mask if you're really worried about it, and go chop up some wood, get some free wood. So that's one way. Craigslist for free. Usually you have to chop it. Another way would be obviously just buying a face cord, going and picking it up. I don't know if I mentioned yet, but a face cord would be 8 foot wide, 4 foot high, and 16 inches deep. So each log should be 16 inches long, and you stack them up 8 foot long and 4 foot high. Whereas a cord of wood is 3 face cords, so you put them together, 1, 2, 3. That's a cord of wood. And again, a face cord is usually about $90 these days. Hopefully not too much more than that. My dad told me that a whole cord of wood used to be something like $90, maybe even less, like $70 in his not too distant memory. So it just shows you the cost of what you can expect to pay. However, well, here, the third way that I know of for acquisition, since we're talking about that, not only free, buying a face cord, buying a V-stack, but I would say, Lord willing, here in Michigan you can do this. You can go up on state land. You just have to fill out a form, and I believe they allow you to acquire up to 5 cords per year, something like that, either 3 or 5 cords, which is a decent amount. If you think about a face cord being stacked up, again, 8 foot long, 8 foot long, 4 foot high, that's 1 face cord. So you could get at least 9, maybe up to 15 of those for free. But again, you got to chop it, and you can usually only do downed logs, downed trees, but you go up on state land, fill out your form, find some downed trees, and one other caveat is, at least in Michigan, you're not allowed to sell it. So, just wanted you to know that. Anyways, time. How long does it take this stuff to dry out? Because you can't just chop a tree down and burn it. Did you guys know that? You cannot just chop a tree down and then burn it. Unless it's been dead and sitting upright for a while. That's called dead wood. That's more likely to be able to chop and burn sooner at least. But a fresh tree that's actually alive, you're going to want a lot of sources say 6 months. So stack it up, store it for 6 months. Sometimes a year, maybe even 2 years if you really want some dry fires that you don't have to worry about a lot of smoke. This is a preparedness channel. Sometimes in survival novels, you'll read about people talking about, or just videos, they don't want to have a huge smoke signature, right? They don't want to give away their position, whatever. And so the more dry wood is, the more likely you are to be incognito, if you need to be. So something to keep in mind, think ahead, foresight, right? Not only for that, but even just survival. I was talking to my boys, and I was like, man, if I came from England, if I came from Europe to the New World, I would want to come, Lord willing, around April, May, and right when I get there, start chopping, because I'm going to want by October, November, right? That's 5-6 months later, I'm going to want that wood dried out. And if you've heard stories about people, not surviving the first winter, there's probably a variety of reasons, but man, how sad and scary would it be? You didn't think ahead and you arrive in August or September, unless you got some people that have already prepared wood for you and are willing to share. Something to think about. So if times got worse, guys, if we got in harder situations, you're really going to want to think about that, not let it catch you off guard. I know one guy I saw on social media, he just chopped a huge pile of wood, and he said, this is next year's wood. And he posted that in December, so he's already thinking like a full year ahead, not just 6 months. So again, just something to think about. Keep that time in mind. It takes time. You can't force it. There's some expensive ways to dry out wood. Some have said you can boil it, but how much is that going to take, Who has a pot that can even fit this piece right here, much less a few pieces at a time? And that's just a few pieces at a time. So supposedly you boil it and then you let it dry. I haven't tried it, but it sounds time consuming. But if it's all you had, and you had the means, then, more power to you. So, on to storage. We already talked about, you got to store it for a while. Stacking it up is good. You got to let it breathe, right? So, don't try to, if there's pieces like this that are V-shaped, don't try to fit the V's together. You want air voids when you're stacking your wood, because you want the air to be able to get in there. If you know it's going to be sunny for a few days, go ahead and take that tarp off, let the sun get to it and the wind, so it seasons it even better. That's the phrase that's used, is seasoned, right? Like, you know, I'm going to chop my wood in spring, and then it's going to season for the seasons of spring, summer, fall, right? And then I'll use it in the winter. So again, you know, most people stack it up 4 foot high, 8 foot long, 16-inch logs. Might be worth, especially if you want to sell it, might be worth just measuring it. If you got a big log that you're cutting up, just go ahead and get your tape measure out, and, you know, approximately, it doesn't have to be perfect, but, you know, try to aim for 16-inch pieces, just for sake of being honest, because, you know, in the Bible it says that the Lord hates unjust balances. I had an experience recently where a guy was he advertised a face cord, and it was not a face cord. A face cord would be 8 by 4, right? That's 32 square feet of face, so to speak. And it was probably more like 5 by 5, if that. Like, being generous.